It's high time that I think I talk about Yae Miko, because this character I think is the closest character that I could say I've mained in Genshin Impact. Maining in the sense that, you know, I go back to using them consistently, over and over again, right? To be clear, I think, you know, the spice of Genshin in playing it long term is playing around with different characters, so it's not like I use Yae 100% of the time. Anyways, you know, Yae's on banner right now, and I figure it's time I properly make a video and talk about some of the things. This is mostly just going to be a rambly video, because like I don't know. How do I condense down 2 years of experience of, actually, how long has it been since? Alright, yep, so her original banner was February 16th. So yeah, it has been over 2 years since I've had Yae. So yeah, I've used Yae for a while. And there's a lot of things I really like about this character. A big part of the reason I was even excited about her in the first place was because of like story reasons and whatever. Just like a lot of people fall for characters because you like them. Go figure. But she's had the highest long-term value for me as a character. Like, of any character I pulled for, I don't regret Yae, right? When I started playing Genshin, I started playing January of 2022, so, you know, the patch before Yae came out, and I got Xiao as my first limited 5-star, and then I got Ganyu as my second limited 5-star, and both these characters, I can say, are basically useless to me nowadays. I don't dislike them in any particularly significant way, they're just characters I never really use, and that's kind of what I want to talk about with this video, is like, whereas Yae, on top of me liking her as a character more, I have gotten just more actual functional use out of her. So anyways, my Yae is C2. I got her C2 on her second banner, and then I do have her triple crown. She's been triple crowned for a long time. I've gotten value and felt like she was a useful character before Dendro existed. Yae got a lot more value with Dendro, but she's not a character that requires Dendro. She's just someone that I think shines the best with Dendro, and go figure, that seems to be how she was designed. I do not think Yae's constellations make that meaningful of a difference to the experience of using her, by the way, and same thing with weapons. Somehow I got Kagura's Verity on her original banner after doing a 10 pull, and then if anything caused my downward spiral in spending wishes a little bit unwisely, yeah, I think it was getting Kagura's Verity in a 10 pull. Gambling, yay. I have used Yae in, I believe, every single Abyss cycle. I'm going to go through here. I don't even know if she appears in every single one of these things, because it only shows like 4 characters, right, in this Abyss challenge history thing. And then it shows like the stats over here. So we're going to see if Yae appears in every single one. Like, yep, there's Yae, there's Yae, there's Yae, there's Yae and Elemental Skills Unleashed. There's Yae, there's Yae, there's Yae, there's Yae. Oh, there's no Yae, oh my god. But Amber's here. So anyways, there's Yae a bunch of times, there's Yae, oh boy, Yae has a lot of the defeats. Yae is a squishy character, I think is one thing. Yep, there's Yae, there's Yae, there's Yae. But yeah, Yae is a relatively squishy character, but, you know, by nature of the fact that I've used her a lot, she's probably also the character that may have died the most on my account. But anyways, there's Yae, and, oh, Yae's not here either. Oh my god. Alright, so there's 2 things in here that don't show Yae, but I'm fairly confident in every single Abyss cycle, like when they've had, you know, new enemy lineups and whatnot. I've used Yae every single time. And that's for two years straight of Abyss cycles. And Yae was not a character to be like that. I was like immediately, oh, as soon as I got Yae, I started 36 starring every single Abyss. Yae can right here, right now, emerge her way through every single Abyss cycle for me. Yae is where I have gotten long-term value out of, compared to other characters wherein, like, after I get bored of them, I never touch them again, right? Like, if we compare Yae to someone who's, like, obviously very strong, like, Nuvilet's a very strong character. I don't use Nuvilet anymore. I kind of regret Nuvilet, I'll be honest. Like, the problem is he's an on-fielder. And on-fielders are only as useful to you as you want to still use them, right? The fact of the matter is that at any given moment in time, you have 1 character on-field and 3 characters off-field. Yae can be slotted into a team and be useful in many teams, regardless of whether or not I want to on-field Yae or not. And Yae can be a competent on-field character, and as time has gone on, you know, things like, you know, Cloud Retainer exists now that make doing plunge Yai an actually real competent thing, right? I don't know. I'm already kind of off topic. Point is, Yai is versatile, right? She's versatile by being an on-fielder, but if I compared, you know, if we're trying to like be objective, like Neuvillette is a more friendly character. If your goal, for example, is just to like 36 star and Abyss at all, Neuvillette is a strong character and takes relatively low investment to be able to turn into a competent character. Like Yai takes more investment to get value out of than someone like Neuvillette. But still, once you're bored of Neuvillette, he's not going to do anything for you, right? That's just the problem with on-fielders in general. I mentioned, you know, Ganyu and Xiao before, and both these characters are characters I don't really use anymore ever because I just am not interested in playing with them. On-fielders for me, and like once I get bored of them after, you know, a month or two maybe of playing with them, I tend to never touch them again. I like characters that enable me to, you know, do different things and that are useful in different teams, right? The more team options a character has, the more useful I think a character is. Yai, let's be real, Yai is the standout of the Inazuma story, and maybe it's just because I have a little bit of a troll in me, but I do like this character on a personality level, and so that was a big influence for why I pulled her in the first place. I think she's one of the better written characters in the game, is what I would say. But in general, I would also say the character writing quality has been going up as time goes on. I think Farina, you know, for example, is another standout character. But a lot of characters, I think, are not necessarily written amazingly. I don't recall if I mentioned her constellations much. I don't care about going for any more constellations, by the way, on her. I've become a constellation hater. I honestly don't. Her C2 and C1 are not very useful. Her C1 is a scam. Like her burst. I don't even find her burst that useful with her C1. I find it useful as a situational nuke, because notably her burst like cost goes down a lot with her C1. Right, it goes from 90 to like 60 something. But it still has a really long cooldown that oftentimes doesn't fit in well, and it can be awkward to weave into a rotation, and energy needs and blah, 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 blah. Even her energy needs are still not insignificant with her C1 if you want to burst her rotation. And I basically find it that for like ease of like rotation and flexibility, which is I think a really, really, really big upside. The Yai's flexibility in you can like spend varying amounts of field time on her, I think is a big upside to her. And if you're going to use her burst consistently every rotation, that field timing goes up a lot, but her burst is not useless. It is fun to try to utilize ideally, because the optimal thing to do is, you know, use her burst when the turrets are right about to expire, which the easy way to notice that if Yai is on field is her turrets are going to start expiring right after you get your charges back. So right about, yep, there. And right before that happens is when it's ideal to use her burst, because her burst consumes the turrets and then gives you the charges back, so you can press E again. So, you know, you could do other things with your other characters in the meantime while the turrets are going, you know, blah, 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 and then so you switch back to Yai, do her burst, and then you do her 3 skills again. That's kind of the general nuance of trying to use her burst optimally, but more often than not, I find in a lot of teams, I basically only use it as a situational nuke. I'll try to show things, but I didn't plan to make this video until I was like, oh wait, Yai's banner is here, and I've never really made a video about Yai, so this is just going to be me rambling. Deal with it, it's fine. Point is, Yai's burst is specifically generally useful to me in more situations than not, as a use her burst to nuke down an enemy that has, say, I don't know, 10%, 20% of its health left, right? That's what I like it for. And the animation is great, but all in all, like, I think her Constellation 1 is basically a scam, because it should have been in her base kit. Like, I don't think it makes sense for her burst to cost 90. I don't know. It also, I think her burst is the worst part of her kit, basically. The only good part about it is that animation. Her C2 is the more interesting one, and her C2 I wanted not because of the max level increase, which is just functionally her multiplier, right, goes up by 40%. This level 4 multiplier is only possible with her Constellation 2. I don't really care about that. I can tell you, I got her C2 after Dendro came out. You know, Dendro was a insanely bigger upgrade for Yai, much more than her C2 was, right? Yai C2 notably also comes with a range increase of 60%, which is also by no means necessary. Like, I think Yai, if I put her turrets down, she was targeting something over here. Yeah, she's targeting this, right? So I'm pretty sure this is within range normally of her skill without her C2. But if I go and put the turrets, say, over here, I think this would be outside of the range. Okay, let's see if I can move it a little bit closer. So that's outside of the range. Let's do, like, right here. Is this... Yeah, this is within range. Okay, so right here is within range. Right here is without out of range, even with her C2, right? And I think without her C2, I'd probably... The range is probably going to be something like... It'd have to be, like, right here. I can tell you it basically barely makes a difference in practice, because normally you're going to be near enemies anyways when you're doing your EEE, but by nature of being a range damage character, that is a significant benefit. In some contexts, it's just relatively rare. It's just one of those things. I liked it as like as a thing that felt like it gave me actual value rather than, oh, I saw 1,000 more damage appear on screen. Woo! Like, I can actually feel the range increase, whereas the damage increase is the damage increase is something, you know, you can get just by pairing her with different teammates, or doing different artifact builds, and et cetera, right? I just don't think it makes sense to go for constellations for damage increase, and that's all the rest of her constellations do, is just damage increase, and I really don't care about them. They're relatively pointless in my opinion. You can get them if you want, to be clear. I know there's like people on my Discord server that have C6EI, and like, you know, more power to you if you feel like that you get value out of your money, but I think it's a ginormous waste of your in-game or outside of game resources. I don't even think C2 or C1 is worthwhile. Like, Yai is a fairly feature-complete kit without her C2 or C1 or without her weapon, and yeah, I think that's a good state for a character to be in. Yeah, Yai has she's always dealing. She's always dying. If you don't have a skill issue, Yai is actually not a character that always dies, believe it or not. But anyways, I guess while I'm on this screen, as we're talking about artifacts with Yai a little bit. So I have Yai, I'd say she's probably my most like invested character as far as artifact quality goes. I have Yai on a two-piece build, and the thing is, she works really, really well on two-piece combos. Four-piece Golden Troop is her like highest damage output option if you like look at leaderboards on Akasha, but Akasha is always like one specific context, right? And notably, Golden Troop is only an off-field context. I don't care to use Golden Troop because it's entirely off-field. I find that in a lot of Yai teams, I end up spending a little bit of time on-field on her, and just doing things as simple as weaving in some normal attacks, weaving in some charge attacks, and if you're spending on-field time on Yai, you lose the four-piece bonus from four-piece Golden Troop, right? And then two-piece Golden Troop is not really better than doing two-piece EM, because Yai has this really, really good passive, where in every point of EM she has gives her skill damage bonus. So two-piece EM on two-piece, you know, Wander's Troop here, if you multiply that 80 EM times the 0.15% you get per EM, that comes out to 12% damage bonus for her skill. But notably, EM benefits more of her damage than just her skill damage, right? She gets 12% skill damage bonus while also getting the benefit from what EM does normally, which is increasing your reaction damage, and it increases her reaction damage for sources of her damage that aren't her skill, right? Whereas skill damage bonus only benefits her skill. So, point is, like, I find two-piece EM to be better than two-piece skill damage combos, even though I have some, you know, really good artifacts available to me on Golden Troop. But ultimately, depending on what exactly you're doing, if you're doing an entirely off-field Yai, then yes, theoretically you should be using Golden Troop. If you're doing an entirely on-field Yai when paired with Farina, well then you should probably be playing Martial Say Hunters. So ultimately, I would say use whatever you have that has the best substats. Oh my god, what in the actual F is this artifact? Okay, that's one of the rarest artifacts you could possibly see in this game. We're gonna do the oldie, throw away a good artifact to get a good artifact. Let's see what happens. I just want to see not HP. That's a lot of HP. I'm sad. And another HP roll? Nope. ER. Weird artifact. This went from potentially one of the most disgusting artifacts ever to weird. I don't know what the actual heck I can do with this piece. The chances that you need an artifact like this is not high, but it's a weird enough artifact that I'm going to keep it. Point being, keep weird artifacts because you never know when you're going to need weird artifacts like that. It actually makes me think, I've never actually tried a full EM build on Yai. What? Okay, you know what? We're gonna do some shenanigans that I've never tried with Yai before, but this is something you can do with Yai. I'm gonna put that piece on her, and then I need an EM goblet. We're doing full EM Yai, and the idea here is we're gonna try to like maximize Hyperbloom damage, but you know she's converting Elemental Mastery to damage bonus, right? So we get a whole bunch of damage bonus from the nature of this, you know, just having EM main stat, but then this set, by nature of the passive of the set, is giving us a whole bunch of free crit rate if we're playing her with Farina. That I don't know, it might work surprisingly competently. We're gonna find out. Use that timepiece and this goblet, I think, and that feather, and this juicy flower has 89 EM on it. I can't resist. I think also in this context, Widzith probably makes more sense. We don't really, since we're not building attack percent on her, we don't really gain much from the higher attack percent, higher base attack from Conqueror's Verity, and we're going to have so much damage bonus already. The nature of Yai having that EM passive, this is an illustration of why I like this passive so much, right? And it allows you to get more value in EM than you would normally be able to get from, so it allows you to do some shenanigans. I think for funsies, I'm just going to throw in Bennett here because this is going to be the damage to maximize, so she should get a good talent-based damage and big Hyperbloom damage. Pick whoever you want for the 4th slot if you're going to try to replicate this for yourself. Alright, the real question is how quickly will things die? Stop it. Stop. You get little buttholes. Nice 27,000 Hyperbloom. Let's do this. There's a problem with the Ice Burst, is sometimes it just misses. Yeah, 27,000 damage on a Hyperbloom, while we're also, you know, still getting a lot of damage. I didn't even... there's too many numbers, man. Problem with Dendro teams sometimes is there's too many numbers, and I don't even know what I got from her skill. So we're going to do this one more time, and we'll try to actually pay attention to the damage numbers that I get. I am so very off track for what I meant to actually be doing in this video. Do that, do this, do this, do this. I still can't tell what she's getting. I think she's getting like 40k. She was getting, yeah, this is a strong variation of a Yai on-field team. Abusing all the artifact sets, abusing Farina, and all that. Yeah, I don't know. This is a very high investment thing. I'm not going to recommend people specifically chase this. Also, Bennett probably should have been on instructors instead of on 4-piece noblesse in this team. Never even done that before, but I don't know. Let me know if you want me to do some kind of weird video on this build, and I can maybe properly test it more. Insanely high investment thing to do. I don't necessarily recommend chasing it, but hey, if you played Genshin as long as I have, that's kind of the spice of being able to play around with different things, and it's what makes the game engaging and fun to me on mechanic levels, being able to do different shenanigans like that with the characters you like. And Yai is a perfect character for that because she has off-field utility, she has on-field utility, so you can do on-field things. That was a great demonstration. Wasn't planning on including that in the video, but I think it was a great demonstration of the ability you have to do different things with her, and that's part of why I feel like I've been able to get value out of her for 2 years, and that makes her a good character. In my mind, it makes her a better character than Nuvilette, even if she isn't as strong, right? Because there's more to how useful a character can be to you than just whether or not a character is strong in their damage output. How versatile they are in different numbers of teams is, I think, a far more meaningful factor than just their damage output, in my opinion, as someone who's played this game for too long. One thing I do want to mention quick is her ability to be played outside of Dendro contexts. I can say I usually definitely prefer playing her with Dendro. I think I mentioned in the video earlier that, you know, Yai's strengths come out the most when you play her with Dendro. But notably, I think that Chevreus's existence now gives any Electro and Pyro characters a little bit more team versatility. Okay, back to the build I had before on her. Let's do this. Do that. And you can see we're getting decent damage from overloads and whatever. Although, actually, wait. So normally I actually prefer to play Chevreuse without Bennett. Because I like having the off-field Electro. In this case, I think it would actually make most sense to do an on-field Bennett in this team. So while we're having, you know, Yai getting her off-field damage, I just on-field DPS Bennett to get extra pyro application. Yeah, you get the point. You saw that it dealt damage, right? Like, I think Chevreuse team variations for Yai actually are pretty good. And my Chevreuse is not C6, by the way, so there was no damage bonus going to Yai for her C6. And the main reason that a big part of the reason I like that, especially with Xiangling instead of Bennett, because if you put Xiangling instead of Bennett in this team, you don't have to worry about, you know, circle impact things. You just kind of place your character's abilities down, you know, do Chevreuse, do Yai E, and then you can kind of just try to make sure you run at least close enough to enemies for Xiangling to hit. Point is, I really enjoy Chevreuse Yai variations. She's probably one of my favorite characters to play with Chevreuse. I do actually want to show. I'm gonna switch to Xiangling here, and then switch to Raiden, because this is probably my favorite Yai Chevreuse team variation. The normal team that people use Yai and Raiden in together is normally with Bennett and I think in Kazuha or something. I don't know. And it's like, it's fine. I don't personally like it that much though, but this team variation has like a freeform enough playstyle that I really enjoy it actually. So, I don't know, you'll be able to see it here. And do that. We burst. And if we time this right, we should get 4 bolts out. I did. Good. Like, man, this team is fun. This team like rotates in a way that if you time things well, right, lets you smoothly transition from Yai into Raiden and vice versa. It makes them feel like they worked well together. And yeah, so I don't know. That's just an example, right? You can see just within the context of Chevreuse Yai teams, I can do multiple things in multiple team variations and make Yai feel good. It's like I feel like I've barely touched even like the iceberg in this video of how many teams Yai can be slotted into. By the way, one thing that just popped in my head, I don't think I mentioned before. I really enjoy the like I enjoy when characters like force me to like be aware a little bit of like, what I'm doing with them as far as like movement goes. And I really like Yai's aspect of having to like create triangles. You have to do this pattern of switching your direction a little bit. It is very forgiving. You can literally just do something like that, and that counts as a triangle, right? Like it's a very weird shaped triangle, but it's a triangle, and that counts as the full damage you can get. But you just can't do things like, you know, just going straight forward. That does not count. You don't have a triangle there. It's just a line. So as long as you're, you know, reversing direction in some form with one of the E's, that's all you really got to do and to create a triangle with her. And I really enjoy that aspect. It's one of those really minor things that's very simple to do, but forces you to engage with like how you're moving around on the battlefield that I think makes it feel much more active, and I quite like it. I don't even think I talked about, by the way, her like normal attacks a little bit. So her normal attacks have fairly good AoE, and that's like what makes her like actually fairly competent for like as a quick bloom trigger when I was doing that before. And like the AoE on that is quite good. And then her charge attack has a higher multiplier, and you can do like jump cancels with it. And you can also do some animation cancels with her E, with her normal attacks as well, if you're trying to like hyper optimize things. I generally don't feel I need to, but it is the thing you can do. She does have some, you know, optimization tech in that regard, on top of like the burst timing things I've mentioned before. Alright, real quick, I think one last team I want to showcase with Yai is Yai and Tignari. I mentioned Tignari before, so Yai and Tignari are really fantastic teammates. The way that they flow into each other with Yai's, you know, short but not non-existent field time, and then Yai's and then Tignari's short but also not non-existent field time, makes them feel really good together. In general, the core of just doing Yai plus Tignari is a core that has a lot of options. I can do, you know, Animo to try to swirl Electro. I can do Fischl like I do here. And then, you know, having additional Dendro for Dendro Resonance isn't bad, but you don't have to do an additional Dendro. I've done a lot of different variations of Yai Tignari teams, and they almost always feel really, really good. And blam, and do. And you can time in that. I didn't have the burst back because energy, but it was fine. And there we go. Do the official thing. Do this. The range damage on this team in particular, like of the Yai Tignari core of being able to be away from enemies is a heavy utility to, you know, like defensive utility, right? So yeah, the Yai Tignari core is one I constantly fall back to in the Abyss all the time. Like if you went and looked at, you know, the Abyss thing again, I wouldn't have been surprised if Tignari showed up to a similar degree as Yai did, right? Because I pair them together so often. And now with like Farina's existence, you can even do, you know, quick bloom variations with doing Tignari, Yai, Farina, and that's a very, very strong combo. Yai, if she's entirely off-field, by the way, doesn't always trigger Dendro cores super consistently because the AoE on her skill is relatively small. Maybe I can actually demonstrate that here. Let's just do Baiju. Let's see if she triggers them. Yeah, so you can see she's not triggering those ones there. But she did trigger those ones, right? So that was actually a good demonstration there of what I was talking about with the Hyper Bloom course from her skill off-field. She can trigger them, so you can do Quick Bloom Yai with her just off-field, but it's not something that's reliable enough to, say, do what I did earlier where I built Yai full EM, right? Like, that wouldn't make sense for an off-field triggering Yai. And I didn't even mention, by the way, for Overworld, I think it's a really important factor that characters are useful in Overworld. You know those, like, hilly trail towers? You know, I guess, let me go see if I can find a hilly trail tower. Because on top of like the fact that you can just automatically kill things, you know, that are around you without you having to do anything, you can just dodge, which I enjoy. I find it more mentally engaging to try to dodge enemies. She can also just hit things from range, right? That are a little bit above. I don't think Yai is necessarily, you know, the best character for Overworld or something, right? Like, I think the fact that, you know, characters like Cloud Retainer have exploration movement abilities potentially makes them more useful than someone like Yai. But I do think it's a very important factor that characters have some amount of exploration utility, or just Overworld, like, convenience of exploration. And I find that Yai is one of those characters that I very much appreciate having in my party in Overworld, even if I do not feel like it's necessary to use her in Overworld. She's just a convenient way where you can, you know, focus on one tankier enemy, for example, and then you look around you, and all the other little enemies were just murdered by her off-field because she just randomly targets all those enemies. And that's a nice, really convenient thing about her. I think the last important thing I have to mention, here's I think a demonstration of her range, of vertical range, right? So, you know, normally you can't hit that enemy up there. But yeah, I can, because that's just how I mean, this team can hit anyone from range, but, you know, range damage is nice. That's basically all I'm saying. I think the last thing I really need to mention, as far as, like, her kit goes, is comparing her to Fischl. I think I probably demonstrated the specifics of Yai and Yai's kit that I think makes me appreciate her. Fischl is a very, very, very good teammate for Yai, or any Electro character, because Fischl can give you a lot of additional damage in a team, off-field damage in a team, when you are doing Electro reactions by abusing her A4 passive. This Oz will deal extra damage whenever an Electro reaction occurs. You can really, really abuse that to make some really, really strong teams, including Fischl. And that is, Fischl's uniquely better, for example, and then because of that, for something like Electro Charge. Yai is not necessarily bad for Electro Charge, to be clear, but not better than Fischl. Overall, I'd say the number one, like, easiest thing that differentiates Yai over Fischl is her ability to her increased value in AoE situations, compared to Fischl, who was relegated to just single target. That's the simplest thing, at least. If you already have an invested Fischl and you are interested in Yai, but you feel like you don't know if you'll get value out of Yai because you already have invested in Fischl. I personally don't think that's that much of a problem. I think it's very easy. Don't drown in the puddle. Okay. I think it's very easy to get value out of both of these characters if you have them. They are different enough in the things they can be good at that they are both relevant to have. But I think it's a good thing that Fischl exists as a competent off-field Electro option that, is even good at C0 as a 4-star compared to Yai, who was, of course, a 5-star, right? So, I do think Fischl's a more valuable character because of ease of acquisition compared to Yai. Like, I would recommend Fischl over Yai most of the time. Yai is ultimately just, I'd say, a more simple character to just use in different situations compared to Fischl, though. Like, Fischl is someone you really want to abuse to get value out of, whereas Yai is someone you can just slot her in any team where you can afford her field time aspects, and wham blam, there you go. She's useful. Like, that's as complicated as Yai gets sometimes. The worst part about Yai, though, is the fact that I don't have the KFC wings, and I never can have them, and Mihoyo will never release wings that are not just blue, so I'm forever stuck with the Liyue wings, which I don't think look bad. I like the contrast of the orange and whatever, but anyways. You get the point. I think you can see with this little farming section here how nice it is just to use Yai for overworld things, right? It's very easy to just kill things automatically. It's just one of those things that, like, if a character is bad for overworld, it's a really, really heavy strike against them for, I think, most people feeling that they can get value out of a character. And Yai, it's very, very easy to feel like you get value out of her for overworld. That's kind of all I'm saying. Plunges. I do enjoy me some plunge Yai. Although, everything dies before I get to do much plunges, oh well. Alright, I just went and double-checked my notes here. I think I mentioned kind of everything I need to mention, and I've rambled on about Yai for over an hour of recording here. I think that's kind of all I got, realistically. I'm sure there's some things I missed, because, again, like, I've used this character, I've mained Yai, right? She's the closest character that if I could say I've mained anyone, on this account at least, I've mained Yai, right? Like, I use her consistently the most, and because I can always find a way to use her. And that's kind of all it comes down to. Off-field characters are good. Electro characters are pretty good. And Yai has a lot of nice little things in her kit that make her useful in different situations. And I think I demonstrated some things with that pretty decently, I hope. And I don't know, maybe you got more of an appreciation for Yai. Do you need to pull her? By no means, no. Like, pull for, I think the best thing to do is just pull for the characters you like, right? And then, after pulling for the characters you like, pull for the characters if you've, seen someone do something with them that seems like they would be useful to use with the characters you like, right? So, if you feel like Yai would be useful for you to get more value out of your Cloud Retainer or your Raiden, then whatever. But, realistically, I think Yai is a character you pull for because you like her. And there's really no need to pull for her if you don't like her, as with most characters in the game. And I think that's a really, really, really good state for her to be in. I think that's like the ideal for most characters is, if you pull for a character because you like them, you can get a ton of use out of them. There's many, many characters in the game that I think are not in that state, and I'd say most on-fielding characters, like on-field only characters, fall in that category, for me personally. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything that you think is really important about Yai. And I don't know. Let me know if you, how long you've used Yai and what teams you enjoy with her and whatnot. She's my favorite character in the game. Her characterization on a story level, her visual design. Because she needs to wear pants. That's the only thing I don't like about her visual design. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, whatever. We're getting off track from trying to end this video. Good lord. I like Yai. She's got a great kit. She's useful in a million different ways. Team versatility is king. Like choice is king. Genshin is a context-dependent game, and choice is king in terms of, how good a character can feel to use over time. And yeah, the Yai nails all those, checks all those boxes for me. But to some degree, I will acknowledge that, Yai also kind of influenced the boxes that I care about in the first place. And you might not be the same, right? So, I don't know. I like this character. She got everything that I could possibly want for a character in this game. Who needs anything else? Who needs anything else?